Hello, today we're going to talk about jQuery selectors. Now, this is one of my favorite things about jQuery. There's a lot of cool things about jQuery, but I like how easy it is to select things. First thing, I'm going to be messing around with this page. I think it's good that you see kind of what the page looks like. Notice there's a bunch of inputs, there's a bunch of paragraphs. I'm not going to look at anything beyond that. So the other thing to understand here is I've got a little bit of CSS. I've got these three classes, red, blue, yellow. They make borders. So unfortunately, I can't do a cool demo without introducing something that I'm not trying to talk about, like classes, but I'm talking about classes. It's just a side effect of the conversation. So let's talk about selecting things with jQuery. So one of the things that's painful in JavaScript is selecting things. Document.getElement by ID and then the name of the ID. So let's start by selecting something by its ID using jQuery. So I've got these paragraphs here. They've got IDs like P1, P2, P3, P4. I got a div with an ID. If you want to select something in jQuery, you're going to write a $sign, which means you're writing jQuery is basically what that means. In order for this to work, you need to have a reference to jQuery. You need to have the jQuery library available to you. Once you have that, you can start selecting things. So what you're going to pass here is going to be a string, generally speaking. And so single quotes, double quotes, doesn't matter. Let's say my ID. I don't know if that's a good thing to select or not. So, but basically I'm saying I want to select that thing. Now, this has roots in CSS. If you're good at CSS, you're going to love this. If you are not good at CSS, you're not going to love this. But it might be that push you need to learn a little bit more about CSS. In CSS, if you want to create a rule which applies to an ID, it starts with a pound sign or a hashtag or whatever the heck people want to call that character. That means I want to select something with an ID of my ID. And then I'm going to call this add class function that you don't need to worry about. It's just, I'm telling you it's a jQuery class. And or it's a function, and let's just say I want to do red. I'm adding the class of red. I'm not really trying to teach you about that, but I have to do something other than just select it if I want to show you how this works. So what that should do is add a class of red, which is a red border, to something with an ID called my ID. Head on over here, refresh, and there's that border. Right? So that is how you select something with an ID. Let's do one more ID, because I think IDs are something you're going to be selecting a lot of. So it's $, parentheses, then some string. Just pick something that you want to select. Like, how about this my H1? So $, my H1. The $, because it's an ID. If that's a mysterious idea to you, then that means that you don't know a whole lot about CSS, is what that means. And it's okay. CSS is relatively easy to learn, or at least get started with. But, you just gotta go learn that. So let's do blue. I think I got blue. Save, and so this should add a class to the thing with an ID of my H1. I don't know. Maybe you like this, maybe you don't. This is very much like getElement by ID in JavaScript, but where this gets really cool is you can do stuff like this. So again, I'm going to select something again, and to be clear, the selector part is this part. The rest of it is just what I'm doing to it, and I'm styling it so you can see it. What else you can do? You can do something like select by class. So see these inputs up here? They have a class of required, that was an accident. It tripped me up for a while, but I thought it was funny, so I'm keeping it. However, I don't want to write the word required, so I want to style things with a class of required. Now, if you are familiar with CSS, you know that a class has a dot in front of it, right? This is just straight CSS. I mean, it's not CSS, but it's rooted in CSS. Let's go add class, and we'll do yellow, I guess. You might notice that I kind of go back and forth between single and double. It's kind of my intention. It doesn't matter, right? They both indicate that it's a string. So here I'm going to select everything with a class of required, and I'm going to give it a yellow border. Let's see how this goes. And I guess that was kind of subtle, but do you see how these, well, maybe it wasn't subtle, I don't know, but these went from having the normal, whatever the heck kind of borders they are, to now having the yellow dashed borders. And yes, I know that I did orange, but yellow doesn't show up very well. So Let's pretend that's yellow. So IDs work like that, so that pound sign. If you want a class, it's going to have the dot notation, and the other major set of things you can do are kind of related to selecting by tag type. So let's say, now here's where things get weird because I've already burned through all 3 colors. Let's say I want to have all the paragraphs. Well, if you want to select all the paragraph tags, then that's just going to be just the P, right? That's the tag. There's no class, there's no ID. I have to be thoughtful here. What's going to look the least ridiculous? I don't know, probably all look ridiculous. Let's just do red. So now I'm selecting by tag name. And these are all analogous to things that you can do in JavaScript, but it's easy because it's all in one spot, right? Like you don't need to know the different functions. In JavaScript, it kind of drives me crazy. It's like select elements, like some of them have an S on it. It's all kinds of case sensitive. But here, just $, and then in parentheses, you're going to pass a string, and that's going to be your selector. So you can do ID, you can do class, tag type. You can also do things like this. Now this is going to be, I don't know how this is going to go in terms of an example, but you can use these pseudo selectors. Like I could say, let's go input colon last. Now here's where you're getting into the more in-depth CSS. That's a CSS rule for addressing the last input in this set. And so I'll say add class. I'm trying to think. So they're orange right now, so I think the best thing would be red, I guess, for you to see. And that's going to select, you know, it's a in a sense it's selecting by tag type, but it's also, you know, a filter beyond that. So let's see how this goes, and hopefully that thing turns red. And, oh, yeah, that went not the way I expected, but it did make sense. It actually turned my submit button red because, yeah, I guess that is an input. All right, so those are selectors in jQuery. So they are very similar to how things work in CSS. So if you're familiar with CSS, which I would hope you are if you're writing jQuery, at least to some extent, then I think you're going to love these because you've already got skills at writing rules for element types. And you can use those in jQuery to help you select things easily. So that's how you use selectors. I'll make a couple more videos on jQuery. I'll do one. I plan to do one on binding events. So selecting something is one thing, binding an event is another. And I'm also hoping to make one about for each. So how do you iterate through a set of things that you select using a selector in jQuery? So if you enjoyed this, I'm going to make a few more videos. Thanks for watching.